I got a lot to talk about because I just finished The Fellowship of the Ring, and wow, like that ending, that last chapter was amazing. But before I get into that, I want to talk about a lot of things. So while I was reading this, I had to constantly remind myself that this is book one of the trilogy. Because in my mind, I'm thinking about The Hobbit. I'm thinking about how so much happened in The Hobbit. But I had to keep reminding myself like The Hobbit was a prequel. The Hobbit was not book one. It was a prequel to this trilogy, which is why it was written the way it was. This book, I would say it's definitely like a slow burn almost, and it's definitely a build up. I would say this book is a build. This whole book is a build up towards Mordor. But even before Mordor, like the first half of the book or first 60% of the book is a build up towards the Council of Elrond. So I gotta get into that too, cause holy crap, this book had so much lore in it, so much lore. I had to reread multiple pages multiple times just to understand what was going on. It was crazy. But obviously, this book starts off with um, like I want to talk about some of my favorite parts in the book, and one of them is how it starts off, just like in The Hobbit, where Gandalf comes to the Hobbit's home. He comes to Frodo, and he sends him on a quest. And there was like a very nice quote that Gandalf said in this book, where Frodo is upset that he has to do this, and Frodo said, I wish the ring had never come to me. I think he says like I wish this had never happened. And Gandalf says something along the lines of, "So do the people of the past, so do the people of the present, and the people of the future. But that is not for others to decide." And then he says, "All we have to decide is what to do with the time given us." Amazing. Gandalf is such an awesome character. And as I was reading, and they're on this journey and they're heading towards their goal, they come across this character. His name is Tom. Now, Tom is a very interesting character. The moment he was introduced, just like same thing in The Hobbit, every character introduced in Tolkien's books, they play such a big role, or they have so much going on. Even if they only appear for a little while, I have a feeling these characters are gonna play such a huge role in the later books. Because Tom, right off the moment, like I was reading about him, his introduction, I was interested in who this person was right off the bat. There was nothing boring about this character. So Tom saves them because they were in a little bit of trouble, and he brings them to his home. He brings the hobbits to his home, and something happens in the book that I hope and I really wish that Tolkien later explains in book two or book three. Um, Tom is holding the One Ring, and he slips it on his finger, and nothing happens. And reading that, like, it shocked me. Like, he did not become invisible, and he was laughing. It was as if the ring held no power over him. I don't know. It's just so confusing. It was so weird, and even Frodo was shocked. But the one thing that I didn't understand was, why didn't Frodo question it? Why didn't Frodo ask Tom, like, how was that possible? Why didn't anybody question it? I don't know if I missed something. I don't know if I was reading it and I missed something, but it was just so confusing because Tom slips on the ring and nothing happens. And that's the ring of power. That ring makes you invisible. It makes you see things, and so that was very interesting, and that made me interested in Tom even more, like who he was as a character. He does appear later on in the book again, and Frodo's like chanting the song, and Tom appears to save them. So that also happened, but again, like no explanation on how the ring did not have any effect on Tom. So that is a question that I have. You know, um, there were a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about in the book. Oh, Gandalf. I wanted to talk about Gandalf. So as I'm reading, right, and uh after they meet Strider, they're on the journey. They end up meeting Gandalf again. So Frodo's relieved, everyone's relieved, like Gandalf is here. And Gandalf is like, I was held captive. So this is one of my favorite parts in the book because Gandalf was such a funny character. He's like, I was held captive, and Frodo's like, how? Like, you were held captive, Like, how's that even possible? And he was like, yeah, me. So he tells his story about how he got captured. I think he tells it in the Council of Elrond. I'm just gonna bring it up right now. He tells a story in the Council of Elrond about how he got captured, and it was because of Saruman the White, which is another wizard, another wise one. And this is one of my favorite parts in the book where he goes to meet Saruman, right? And Saruman is wearing this robe of all colors, like different colors, right? Like a rainbow. He was known as Saruman the White because he would wear white, but he was wearing all different colors this time. And Saruman reveals that he betrays Gandalf, and Saruman is like, I wear all colors now, and Gandalf is like, I liked you better in white. That was just so funny because Gandalf is in danger, and he just like says something that will piss off Saruman. Saruman's like, "You're whole captain now. Like, just shut up, right?" So that was pretty funny. And when they meet Gandalf again, oh, I'm so glad that when they met Gandalf again, we got to see the story of Gollum. I was very, very interested in the story of Gollum. When I was reading The Hobbit, I felt so bad for Gollum. Like, he was just this creature in the dark. He had this ring, you know, and he was cast away. He was driven away. He used to have family and friends, and he was driven away ages and ages ago, right? That's how they described it. And I'm like, damn, like, I felt bad for him, I'm like, holy crap, like, why would they drive him away? Like, what did he do? And, like, imagine just being alone in the mountain for so many years, and the only thing you have to take care of, the only thing that you really want to protect is this ring. So, the ring is what made him live that long in the first place, so, and it corrupted him, kind of. But Gollum, after seeing Gollum's flashback, I don't know if Gollum was already corrupted or if the ring, just being around the ring, would make someone corrupted. But I think just being around the ring would make someone corrupt. Just being close to it because of the power it can hold. So this was also another funny part in the book where Gandalf starts So Gandalf and Strider were looking for Gollum. They were looking and looking, and searching for him, and eventually they found him. And Gandalf corners Gollum and forces him to tell him what he's been up to, and how did he get the ring. And Gollum, being cornered, tells him everything, and Gandalf starts narrating as Gollum to Frodo to tell the story of how Gollum got it. So Gandalf is like, and then Gollum said, and he starts narrating what Gollum said, and then just in my head, I'm just imagining Gandalf saying it in Gollum's voice, and it's just so funny to me. So Gollum's real name is Smeagol. Okay, I'm so glad we got this flashback because Gollum is such an interesting character. Even now, he's such an interesting character to me. So Smeagol had a friend named Deagle. Okay, and the ring was in this like river or this lake, and Deagle finds it, and Smeagol sees the ring, and he's like, "Give me the ring," and Deagle's like, "No," and then Smeagol's like, "No, I want the ring. It's my birthday." And his friend Deagle is like, "I already got you something for your birthday. It was more than I can afford. And then Gollum was like, "Me wants it. And then he basically strangles his friend to death and takes the ring. I'm assuming this is what drives him away from his home. Obviously, he killed his friend. He took the ring. And he runs away, or others find out and they cast him away for what he did. But I think from what I remember, he just slips on the ring and leaves. I might be wrong. I might be wrong on that, but I'm not 100% sure. But he does get the ring. And yeah, that was his backstory. That's how we got the ring. And I'm glad we got to see that backstory in this book because, again, he's a very interesting character. And I I don't know if he was human before. I don't know if I don't know what creature this Gollum is. He has hands, he has feet, he crawls or he can walk on two legs or whatever, but he talks and everything, but I don't know, maybe we'll see even more of him later on. We did see more of him later on, like towards the end of the book. And yeah. So that's another one of my favorite parts in the book was Gollum's flashback. I think that was really awesome to see. Really funny to see Gandalf narrating uh, what Gollum told him. So another one of my favorite parts was the Council of Elrond. Okay, so that was just like a, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like thousands of years of lore just dumped into one chapter. I had to reread multiple things. I had to make sense of what was going on. I couldn't understand something, and I had to like think about it really carefully. There was so much going on, so much. They basically talk about what to do with the One Ring, and they talk about the history of Middle Earth. They talk about how the One Ring was made. It was made by um Sauron, and that ring is able to take control of the other rings. And I think it's brought up where someone says like, why can't we just destroy it ourselves, or why can't the dwarves do it? Because the dwarves are craftsmen and stuff like that. And Gimli says that because they don't know how Thorin made it, so the dwarves can't unmake it, which is very interesting. So they come to the conclusion that this ring has to be destroyed. They brought up Tom. They said, what if Tom keeps it? But they're like, no, it's just not possible, because if Sauron's army attacks, Tom is not going to be able to handle this. Tom is not the right guy for something like this. They also suggest casting it away into the ocean, like, just losing it, getting rid of it somehow, making it lost forever. Gandalf brings up the fact that land and water always changes. The ring will shift, the ring will move. Eventually, it will find its way towards someone. The ring always finds its way towards someone. It is making its way towards Sauron. So they obviously cannot get rid of it. The only thing left to do is to destroy it in Mount Doom, I believe. That is where they're gonna have to find out how to destroy it. Cast it into the fire, I think they said. The fire of Mount Doom. Which is in Mordor, and Mordor is Sauron's territory. So the conclusion of the Council of Elrond was that they have to go to Mordor. And the lore that was being spoken about in Council of Elrond was so much. They were talking about the war. Um, Isildur, I think his name was Isildur. And another person, I think it was his brother. It was two kings. It was a bunch of other people. There was a war that happened. It was cool to imagine this happening as you're reading it, like this history, where they wanted to stop Sauron. This was a long time ago, and they wanted to stop Sauron, and there was like war, right? And eventually they do beat Sauron, but Isildur, he cuts the ring off of Sauron's finger and keeps it for himself as payments for his losses. So I don't know if he genuinely wanted it as payment for his losses, or if the greed took over him. I don't know. He kept the ring, and he even explains later on how having the ring on, like at first when he touched it, it was very hot and it like burned him a little bit, and he would still feel the pain kind of. He wrote it in like a diary or something. And later on, Isildur, he gets attacked by orcs. He's in a river and he gets shot. He gets killed. The ring slips off his finger. Sometime later, it makes its way towards the lake or the river where Smeagol and Deagle are, and that's where the story continues. But yeah, so there was already a war. There was a war, and they did catch the ring. And instead of destroying it, Isildur, he kept the ring, which was a big mistake. And instead of, yeah, he didn't destroy it. He should have destroyed it. He didn't destroy it. And now the ring is making its way back to Sauron. And yeah, so that was also like a crap ton of lore there. And oh, and the other things that were like really confusing me was like Gondor, Minas Tirith, and then Minas Atoll, and then Minas Atoll got taken over by Mordor, and it became Minas Morgul. So what confused me was, I originally, from what I was reading and from what I was kind of understanding of my uh, thinking, was that it was one large city, Minas Tirith and Minas Atoll, right, split into two cities. It was one like land, right, split into two cities. That's what I thought originally, and I kept thinking, if they took over uh, Atoll, why didn't they just take over Tirith, right? Later on, I look at the back of the book, the map. So there's a map here, which is pretty good to have. So it's gonna be a little hard to see on the camera, but Minas Tirith is over here. Okay, this is Minas Tirith. I was mistaken. These two are not together. Minas Tirith is over here, and Minas Morgul is a little farther ahead, like inside the mountains. So there's like a bit of space between them, which is why probably they couldn't take over Minas Tirith. So that was interesting to read. And then it kind of made sense, like, okay, these two cities are actually separate. They're in Gondor, but they're just separate cities in Gondor. So that confused me at first, but I understood that later on. Another thing um that I read about was the white tree. So the white tree was, at first it was confusing, but I kind of got the gist of it. It's like a s- it's like a symbolism in the book where the tree flourishes because there's, in I think it was in Gondor, multiple kings upon the years where the kings were good, everything was good, the tree flourished. But now that dark times are coming, the tree is withering away, knowing like what's about to happen, you know. And one of my another favorite part that I really enjoyed in the book was the hilltop battle, because I'm not really seeing a lot of battles in the book. Um, One of my complaints about this book is like these battles end very quickly, and like it's not like a very long battle, and I want to see fights, I want to see battles, you know, I want to see I want to see like these main characters almost on the verge of death. I want to see them going through that struggle, you know, while they're trying to reach Mordor, and I don't really get to see that here. Not even like when they were attacked in Moria, like I don't really see these things happening. The hilltop battle was really cool. I really liked the way Tolkien described it. I liked how everybody was fighting, and the wolves were trying to attack them, and Gandalf became like a little bigger than his usual size, and he's using fire to fight them. Strider and Boromir are fighting them, so that was really cool to see. Everybody was fighting, and but it was a quick battle. Most of the battles in this book were very very quick, and I'm really hoping later on we get to see more drawn out battles, more long battles. Like I'd like to see, you know, like Strider using, you know, because they were like, uh, to me it seemed like they were hyping up the sword that Strider has quite a bit in the book, where it was like a sword of destiny, and they reforged it, and Strider has it again, you know. So I really hope we get to see more fights. Um, but yeah, that's one of my complaints, where I just wish the fights were longer. So I actually made a video on this like as soon as I was done reading it. It was of Moria and Gandalf's last stand, and I just don't believe Gandalf is dead. I don't believe it. It was really cool to see that twice Gandalf like stood his ground and let the others go. You know, he's like, get out of here, right? And then again, it happened on the bridge over the pit, where this Balrog is attacking them. The Balrog was on fire, and Gandalf is like, this battle is beyond our capabilities. And Gandalf makes a last stand against the Balrog, and as the Balrog falls into the pit, he has like this chain, like this whip of thorns, and he uses it to catch Gandalf, and Gandalf falls into the pit with Balrog. But if there's no dead body, there's no confirmed death. I don't believe Gandalf is dead. Frodo later saw him in a vision. Um, he thought maybe it was Thorin the White, or it was Gandalf, but I think it was Thorin the White. But I'm hoping that Gandalf is alive, and I want to see him in a really cool battle. I want to see Gandalf go all out in a fight. I want to see, because we don't really get to see Gandalf fighting. Like he does these things, right? But you could tell by his feats, like what they say about him in the book, that he is more than what he looks like. Like everyone trusts him. Everyone knows that they can be protected by Gandalf's strength, by his guidance. So I would like to see Gandalf in a crazy battle in the next book when I read book two. I'm really hoping that happens. Um. So yeah. So Gandalf makes his last stand, and they're assuming that he's dead. So the story progresses, they keep going, they end up in Lothlorien, and after that, so I actually, as I was reading the book, I had this theory, and I wish I really made a video on it, like while I was like still reading the book, because my theory turned out to be true, and it was Boromir betraying the group. I actually wrote down key points at what I was reading that made Boromir seem so suspicious. So one of the first things that I noticed was that Boromir, the way Tolkien writes Boromir, it's not the same as the other characters. And I'll explain this why. I'll explain why. Because Boromir is not mentioned a lot throughout the journey. Even though he's one of the main people in Frodo's group in, heading towards Mordor or Minas Tirith, he's not mentioned that much. Like, he's not mentioned as much as Strider. He's not mentioned like Merry and Pippins and Sam, of course, and all these other characters like Gandalf. But it's like he's just behind the scenes, like he's hidden in the shadow. That was my initial thought. Like, why is Tolkien always hiding this guy in behind the shadows? And later on, like, and yeah, even during the Council of Elrond, but at that time I wasn't really suspicious of him. He's the one that mentions we shouldn't get rid of the ring. What if he uses powers to defeat Sauron? But they were like, no, it's not gonna work because we could do that, and then we're gonna be the ones corrupted. We're gonna spread evil throughout the land. Like we don't want that. So he said that, but I didn't really think much of it. But then he there's a couple of things that Tolkien writes. Of course, Boromir, he does not like he doesn't get brought up at all. He does get brought up like when he says something, when he does something, but he just doesn't get brought up like the others. Like I noticed Legolas, I hope I'm saying his name right, Legolas, the elf, he's mentioned more, and he's really cool. I really like Legolas's character. I like the way that he's always like with the group, defending the group, fighting for them. It's really cool. They all do it, but I don't know. I just like Legolas. He's just a cool character. So all these other characters get mentioned, and Boromir does get mentioned, but just not as much as these other characters, which I noticed right away. Like as I'm reading this, I'm like, bro, where's Boromir? Where's Boromir? And then Tolkien does bring him up, and like in a way where it's like, oh, he's still here. Like don't worry about him. He's still here, and that does happen with other characters too, but just not as much with Boromir. And it's funny to see that because reading The Hobbit, I didn't really see that in The Hobbit. All these characters, there were 12 dwarves, right? And a hobbit and Gandalf appeared here and there. But it's like all of them were there. They were in the story. They were in the story. But Boromir was just like hiding behind something, and I'm like, and I had this theory, and I'm like, you know what? I'll make my theory when I finish Lord of the Rings. And my theory was that Boromir was gonna betray Frodo. He was gonna betray the group. And I just didn't think it was gonna happen in this book. I really didn't, because I was nearing the end. And nothing like that was happening. And I'm okay, it's probably not gonna happen in this book. And then the very last chapter, it happens. So that was just something I noticed. There were a lot of other things that I noticed too. Like I wrote them down here. I wrote like um. So when they were on the boats, right? There's a part where Tolkien writes where Boromir is like biting his nails and he's looking at Frodo in like a weird way, you know. But then at that point I'm like, okay, this dude is definitely weird and he's definitely gonna betray Frodo. He wants the ring. And then again, when Frodo had to decide what to do, which path to take at the last chapter, Frodo is up on the cliff and he's sitting down, and Boromir appears behind him, and Frodo describes it as it's described like Tolkien writes. Frodo felt unfriendly eyes behind him, but when he turned around, it was only Boromir. So once it was Boromir there, and they were just those two alone, I'm like, okay, this is definitely a betrayal happening right now, and I wish I made a video on this because my theory was right, and I noticed it even before the signs of Boromir were showing because he just wasn't written into the story the way other characters are written, the way the other uh, group members were written. And so that was one of my theories that um that I was right about, but I just didn't make a video of it. And I really liked how Frodo knows that Boromir is twice his height more times his strength, and still Frodo stands his ground. That was really cool. And and that whole chapter was amazing. Like the breaking of the fellowship. When I read that, I still didn't think it was gonna be the moment Boromir betrays Frodo, but I just thought maybe like okay, they're probably about to go their separate ways. I thought maybe half of them are gonna go to Mordor, half of them are gonna go to the city in Gondor, but it didn't happen like that. The breaking of the Fellowship was literally the breaking of the Fellowship, where Boromir betrays Frodo, but the other group, the rest of the group doesn't know because they weren't there to see that. And and I like the irony in this chapter because um while they leave Frodo alone to decide, they are talking amongst themselves and saying like, and so a lot of them are saying like, I think we should go to Minas Tirith, and then but they were also saying like, but if Frodo chooses to go to Mordor, we'll follow him into Mordor, because if we don't follow him into Mordor, we will be faithless, and we will be traitors, we will be the betrayers. And it's ironic because Frodo in that time frame, he was deciding that he should go to Mordor alone because he didn't want to put his friends in danger. He had good intentions, but it was ironic because technically he betrayed them, in a way, even though he had their best intentions in his heart. So I really like that. And another one of my favorite scenes in the book was when Frodo sat down on the chair on top of the cliff at the last chapter, and he saw everything. He saw like war. He saw all these other lands. He saw the Shire. He saw the Rivendell. He saw all these places, and he sees like, I guess that chair is gonna like show him the future or things that are already happening, and he sees war going on. And my favorite part was when the Eye of Sauron appeared from the Dark Tower and was staring at Frodo, looking for him. So Sauron felt Frodo. Sauron felt that he was somewhere close by, and this eye is like looking over the regions, the land, and Frodo is like frozen, and he quickly gets out of the chair. And I like the way Tolkien describes it. It says like the eye passed over like an arm reaching out. It was right above Frodo. It was right above Frodo, but Frodo got off the chair just in time. And it wasn't the chair that caused it, it was the ring. It was him sitting in the chair. I guess that's kind of started that effect, and the ring just, or the ring starting that effect and the chair amplifying it. And Frodo is like crouched down, and he takes off the ring very quickly. Before he takes out the ring, he's not in his right mind. Like he cannot even, like, he doesn't realize what's going on, and he had like, and just in a second he was just himself again, and he was able to think for himself. And in that moment, he was able to think for himself. He took off the ring very quickly, and that's when Tolkien writes that the eye was like reaching over like an arm, like looking blindly, and it missed Frodo by like a fraction of a second. I loved that. I loved how it shows like the power of Sauron. He's still like looking for the ring. He's still building his army. He's still recovering. But and even though there's still so much distance between Frodo and Sauron, Sauron was able to like do this thing. Like it's like, I don't know if it's one of his powers or whatever it was, but it was really cool to see that, and I really enjoyed the last chapter of that book. Um, I do have questions that obviously I hope I'll be getting later on. One of the questions was that I already brought it up. Tom, he was able to slip on the ring with no effect. I'm assuming this will play a huge role later on. I don't know how it will, but there has to be some sort of reason why the ring won't affect him. And but yeah, another question I had was in Galadriel, not Galadriel, sorry, in Lothlorien, when Galadriel was giving the gifts as farewell gifts, to the group, uh, she asked Strider, like, like, what do you desire? And Strider said, there is something I desire that you would not, you could give me, but he says, like, it's not yours to give. Strider says that it is not hers to give him, even if she would. Even if she will give it, it's not hers to give. And I just have, like, I'm questioning it. I'm like, what is this desire? That's one of the questions I have. and I really want to see what this is, because they focus on that small part in that chapter. They focused on it quite a bit. Tolkien focused on it quite a bit, where the way things were said, the way Strider said it's not yours to give. I'm very curious to see what Strider desires that Galadriel couldn't give him, but he can obtain it through Galadriel. Like, it was kind of confusing, but that oh, and Strider said only through darkness will he be able to obtain this. That's what interested me. It's something he desires. Galadriel could not give it even if she could, but and Strider says it's only through darkness I can obtain this. What is this? Is I don't know if it's like a weapon of some kind. Is it like one of the rings? I don't know. But yeah. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about for Lord of the Rings. The book was very enjoyable. It is a kind of slow burn. Oh, another question I had was when they were attacked, when they were on the river near the end of the story, the orcs were attacking them, and this giant winged creature came, and it was in the shadows. So you don't really get to know what the winged creature is. I'm assuming it's a dragon, but it could also not be a dragon, because Frodo was like, "What if it's a?" He's like, I dare not to name it. So I'm like, what the hell is this? Because if it was a dragon, why don't you just say it's a dragon? So and again, like I thought, we would see a fight, a great fight when that was happening, and but when the winged creature came, I thought, okay, now this might be the moment where we see a long battle in the book, because we're kind of near the end. But Legolas, he shot his arrow at the flying creature, and the flying creature flew away. So I was like, okay, so this is what I mean when I say like these battles are um very quick in the book. Like in Moria, it wasn't even a battle. Like they were fighting. They were fighting. There was a battle in Moria with the orcs in the room, and but they also, once the Balrog appeared, they also had to run away. I want to see a fight, like a crazy crazy fight, and I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that because the story is very enjoyable. I like all the characters. Um, I don't know how I feel like about like Boromir. Obviously, I don't like him now. Like he betrayed the group, and he just doesn't understand that him trying to use the ring for the benefit of the kingdom, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. And one of the scenes that I really really like, this made me like hate Boromir kind of, was when he was chasing after Frodo after he became invisible. Boromir fell down and he started crying. That's a victim. He has that victim mindset. And I hate characters like that. Like, and not hate, like hate them, but hate in a good way. Like, okay, this is, if the character is meant to be hated and I'm hating them, that's a good thing. Like that's what the character was made to make the reader feel. And the moment Boromir started crying over that, I'm like, okay, now this dude, he's bugging out. I don't know. Maybe I might be wrong. Maybe Boromir really does have the best intentions of the city in his heart, but at the end of the day, if he gets a hold of that ring, he's gonna become evil. Like the way he was talking about it, it almost seemed greedy. When he's talking about it to Frodo. And Frodo's a smart character. He caught on to that. But yeah, overall, like great book. It is a little slow paced. Again, this is like a build up because it's the first in the trilogy. The Hobbit is a prequel to it, so I have to like keep reminding myself that The Hobbit was a prequel. This is the first part of this story. But yeah, great book. I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm hoping to see more battles. I'm hoping to see Gandalf again. I refuse to believe he's dead. I'm hoping to see what Shredder's desires are, and yeah, a great book. And I just wanted to make a video on this, on my thoughts and my review on this. Thank you guys for watching, and um, I will start reading Fairy Tale by Stephen King now. After that, I'll read book 2 of Lord of the Rings. But I started a Fairy Tale, and once I'm like halfway through that book, I'll give like an update on it, on my thoughts on it. But yeah, thank you guys for watching the video, and I will see you guys next time.